Right, so here we are for our afternoon session in this fascinating consideration of how we come to be us. So consciousness and name and form. Just to go over, remember these are links. So the link means that we have consciousness as generated by compositional action, as symbolized by the monkey climbing, joining past to present, present to future, and that links up with our embryonic form. So that's really what name and form mean. We have the boat with the man who is rowing, which is the embryonic form, and then the name is the mental aspect, which is symbolized by the man and the woman. Yeah. And that the link of name and form begins at the moment of conception. I'm just going to have to, so I can see that. So these, name and form, are the basis for the 5 aggregates. Okay, they're the basis for the 5 aggregates. Okay, so now we're moving on. So let's see what jelly beans we've got now. The 6 sense spheres, which is the house, the empty house with the 6 windows, and the couple doing it. Making love. Okay, so let's see how these work. So name and form, the embryonic form, generate the powers of the senses. So that's they're all the 6 sense spheres are also called sources, the 6 sources, because they are the foundations upon which consciousness arises. So without our sight, sound, smell, taste, tactile, and mental consciousness, then we wouldn't be able to form a conception. Yeah? Yeah, okay. So they are the foundations upon which consciousness arises. A being in the womb has the tactile sense and the perceptual power of mind. Oh, it's perceptual because it has not yet met any sense objects. Yeah. So it only becomes conceptual when the baby is born and starts to meet sense objects. Okay. So when the 6 sources, I'm just making sure you get all this. When 6 sources are developed, they need to fully develop to experience and create a conscious experience. So at this point, after the embryonic form, there's the 6 windows of an empty house waiting its 6 occupants, waiting to meet its 6 objects. Okay? Yeah, okay, that makes sense, doesn't it? So let's move on. We're okay with that. Yeah. So then we have couple that symbolize contact. So as this says, the sense spheres, touch, taste, etc., generate contact, which is a mental factor. We make contact with an object, just which is symbolized by the couple embracing. The meeting of the senses with sense objects and consciousness is the next link. Okay. And this is when we generate feeling and the delusions arise. So if we move on quickly to that, then we'll get a sense of that. Okay. Yes, so here comes feeling as generated with, as symbolized by the man with the arrow in his eye. Yeah? So pretty direct. So once feelings arise through contact, we need awareness, what we're going to do with those feelings. Yeah? That's why we have the application of mindfulness to feelings. Really important. It's one of the aggregates. And at that point, if we are able to be mindful of what we are feeling, the pleasure or the displeasure or the neutral, then we can observe it rather than react because of it. Okay. So let's take that a little bit further. So feeling generates the next link of craving. And this is where it all starts happening, really, in terms of this is where we apply mindfulness to thoughts and emotions, because the craving is not wanting to be separated from pleasure and wanting to be separated from pain. And if you remember this, if you've had teachings with me recently, we were looking at the 8 worldly dharmas, you know, where basically they're craving for pleasure of the 6 senses and to be free of the unpleasant. So very much what we would call hedonism. We're just wanting more and more of that lovely bottle of wine, which is what is the symbol here, the wine drinker. One is not enough. We want more and more. And then when we've had enough of that, then we move on to want more and more of something else. So craving to be admired. We like to hear nice things about us, ego-pleasing words, and not to be criticized. So you could say that's to do with, you know, status, reputation, that kind of thing, fame. And then craving to have material goods and not to lose them. Well, that's a materialism. And craving for praise and to avoid blame. The ego gets very upset if it's blamed for anything. You know, terrible feeling, and we want to be built up. So those are the 8 worldly dharmas that arise through our craving. So you've got a whole load of karma happening there. Yeah? Okay. So if we just take a step back, we think of feelings, called Vedana. It is also an aggregate. It's the 7th link here, obviously. So due to contact between our senses and a sense object, these feelings arise of pleasure, etc. And based on our ignorance that believes in an inherently existing I, that generates attachment and aversion. Yeah? Makes sense? So attachment and aversion are prompted by feelings of pleasure or displeasure or neutral. Mindfulness of feelings enables us to become aware of the subtle creation of these, yeah? Enables us to monitor them and to let them go rather than letting them lead us to craving. So we start to see how useful the 4 applications of mindfulness are here in terms of them dealing with and helping us to observe and not to become subject to thoughts, emotions, feelings. If we are able to be mindful of them, then we're gradually managing to avoid a ton of karma, yeah? Because the karma is created once we react. Okay, are we all right with that? Right, let's a little bit more detail about craving, sometimes called thirst, trishna, to hold on to that which gives us pleasure and to avoid that which does not. So we've got neutrality as well. Neutrality suggests no feeling. So equanimity is preferable as it generates compassion. So we might think that not rising to not wanting displeasure and wanting pleasure, that neutrality would be better. But if it is indifference, as we've had a look at in the 4 immeasurables, or what we were doing the other day, I'm losing track. Yeah. Then equanimity is better. Actually, we're doing equanimity tomorrow. That's why I'm thinking about it, because I've been preparing. So rather than indifference, which neutrality can bring, we want equanimity, a different quality altogether. So due to ignorance, there is craving, desire. Yeah, we're into the noble truths here. There is suffering that causes desire. So first 2 noble truths are thoroughly being looked at here. They're the cause because they are the root of suffering. They're the source because they give rise to suffering. They're also called strong production because they cause severe suffering, not just dissatisfaction. That's interesting. Called strong production because our craving leads to not just a feeling of discontent at not getting things, but to all kinds of crimes and non-virtues. If we don't move on to cessation and path, the 3rd and 4th noble truths, then we grasp, which is what we're moving on to in a minute. So the path is the way to end the grasping, and renunciation enables us to release our grasping and to affect our craving. We're kind of pouring water on the flames of our addictions, yeah? Starving our hunger rather than feeding it. Yeah. Life's unsatisfactory, so we crave and grasp. That's the basic. Because we're not experiencing the satisfaction of life, we crave and grasp. And this is also an aspect which is very good with the practice of mindfulness, is presence, so that we don't crave and grasp. We remain in the present, we appreciate the present more fully. So you can see how the practice of mindfulness blends with dealing with these links. So we're trying to get satisfaction from external objects, misunderstanding where the source of genuine happiness comes because we're ignorant. And it's all to do with believing in the I. So then we come to our grasping, which I've just mentioned. Upadana, Sanskrit, grasping. As we can see with the little monkey picking fruit from the tree. Wanting more, this is wanting more and more. Never being satisfied. More profoundly, humans grasp at their physical bodies. So much of our grasping is about trying to make ourselves permanent. Yeah, trying to extend our feeling of who we really are. So we have this sense of perhaps when we're younger, or at some point in our lives, we grasp onto that, what we believe to be the real I, a younger one, successful one, it's usually younger, which is why, of course, aging is seen to be such a desperate suffering, because not only are we losing our senses and marching slowly towards death, but we are actually losing or feeling as if we are missing that part of ourselves which is inherently existing, which we think is inherently existing. Yeah, very interesting. So that is a very profound aspect of grasping, is how much we grasp onto the physical body of this being me. And even though we're thinking all the time and our mind is working and we're practicing meditation and we know the teachings, This is insubstantiality. When we look in the mirror, we don't see our mind. We see the creation of our mind, but we don't see the mind. We see the physical body. So it's always being reinforced to us that this physical body that we're grasping onto, it is not what we want it to be. Hence our complete obsession with looks. It all comes from grasping. So then we move on more profoundly to existence. So grasping at the body generates the link to existence. And here we've got the pregnant woman, where karma is being actualized, all the karma's coming together. They say, the teachings say that when a man and woman come together, our consciousness, which is in the bardo, will be attracted to physical form and will be attracted to that couple. And that's when the consciousness comes into the embryonic form, when the egg meets the sperm. So, I mean, traditionally, you would say that you are going to be reborn a girl if you are attracted to the man. That tradition doesn't work so well in our understanding now, but anyway, attracted to one of them. So then you've got the great question of, are IVF babies attracted to dishes? It's a mystery to me, but there's something karmic still coming there, because the sperm meets the egg. It's an opportunity for a poor bardo being, when they say that there are so many craving for physical form, that the consciousness will come in, and that meeting is the karma being actualized for the next rebirth. So there we go, existence. Are we all okay with that so far? Everybody up there in the gods? Everybody okay? Good. I hope it's making more and more sense as we go through. Okay, let's move on. So, let me make that small. There we are. So we're kind of coming to the end of the links here. So the 11th and 12th are birth and aging and death. So due to the pregnant, the existence, craving at existence and physical form, we are born. So this is what happens with our rebirth. So there's the woman giving birth. And then once we are born, we see is it the old man who is walking, carrying a dead body? Yeah. Once we're born, we start to age, and then we'll die, as symbolized by the old man carrying a corpse. Yeah. So we go on. So sickness, aging, and death are the sites that prompted the Buddha to question the reality of happiness and go out on his great search and become enlightened. So although we might feel that it's a wonderful thing, it's very difficult with this, because there is a natural tendency to think of birth of a child as a wonderful thing. But I've definitely seen some writings by Theravadan monk, Venerable Ajahn Sumedho, who said, why do we cry when someone dies and rejoice when someone is born? We should be doing the opposite, which is kind of a really sad test in terms of samsara, because we wouldn't dream of doing that to a couple who were having a baby. But if you think about it, you look at that baby and you think, What's ahead for you?
Mm.
Was that somebody moaning up in the gods? Please mute yourself. You don't want hear any groans at this point. It's a difficult one. It is a difficult one. I mean, for sure, we can come at it the other way, and we can say, you know, there's always two ways of looking at the samsara. You know, we're here, we understand this, we're practicing Buddhists, we're engaged with practicing virtue and how wonderful if a baby is born and all the possibilities of having a precious human rebirth are there. You know, you can do that. But in so many cases, that's not true. That is just not true. And so you can really see how the 12 links are going to lead them all through their life. You know, the craving and the grasping, let's focus on that, is going to lead to making all kinds of karma if you're not engaged and if you're not following a virtuous path. And for sure, you might be following a virtuous path if you are practicing some religions, yeah? Most religions, but there are always the extremes of religion which seem to create more suffering or demand more suffering because of the ignorance. Because of the ignorance. And I tell you, I just think, you know, Buddhism has got it nailed with the understanding of emptiness destroying ignorance. Because without the understanding of the wisdom factor, then as far as I can see, it's very difficult to become liberated. You might become very good and a saint. And it is possible, and I have read some teachings from Christian saints who describe what sounds very similar to emptiness. So I'm not denying it. It can't be achieved. But for your general population to have access to these teachings and therefore a spiritual path, which is definitely going to bring results, it's extraordinary. It is extraordinary. And I guess that's what, you know, I'll be doing the last weekend in refuges. Why take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha? Because it is totally dependable and gives you such wisdom teachings. So, in order to destroy our ignorance, we need to practice ethics. Yeah, that is the path. So if we are looking at these 12 dependent links as an opportunity to understand the nature of samsara, and I'm going to come to this last one later, but let's just go back here. Here's our understanding of the nature of samsara and all the realms of existence, and the kind of feeling that we're left with of, oh my goodness me, what am I involved in? And this is really so profound for me to have to engage in a path to become enlightened. It's so difficult. It's so difficult that we just have to recognize the positive opportunity that actually the depiction of the wheel of life gives us, which is that, look, you know, it's quite simple. It's quite simple. If you get this, you can see that there are endless rebirths. We're being reborn, dependent on karma, so we make good karma. We understand the nature of virtue, not causing suffering to any other beings, and we start to live a virtuous life, which then will lead us to higher rebirths. And if we make contact with spiritual teachings and teachers, to rebirth in the human realm, which then gives us all this access, which we have now. And I think the other thing is that it feels very difficult. You know, it feels difficult, and we are balancing and juggling a conventional life. So we have this knowledge, but we're balancing it with a conventional life. That is our difficulty. And that is what we that is the beauty of having a Sangha community, and access to teachings, that this is as regular for you as, I don't know, going to the gym or yoga or whatever it is you do, you know, that you do this and that you take opportunities and that you create the causes to meet great spiritual teachers, which, you know, there are many opportunities for that. And that you continue your inner education so that you are an inner being. And that's the beauty of it. This traditionally is at the entrance to temples or monasteries. Yeah, the wheel of life is there at the entrance to as a basic understanding of morality. No, we're not responding to that. Okay. So really, the 12 branches of dependent arising are just showing us how we bind ourselves to psychic existence through ignorance and illusions. Okay, so let's just pop through these because I want you to have another discussion before we come back and complete this later. Let me just check. Well, this is quite nice, yeah. Yeah. Recognizing the wheel as a kind of call to action against a rebellion against the prison of selfishness, which Jeffrey Hopkins called the counterproductive maelstrom of suffering. Counterproductive. So everything we do that creates suffering is taking us away from our virtue and our potential to become enlightened. So how we overcome it is apply the antidotes that focus on altruism, which makes our life meaningful and ultimately liberates us. Yeah. Does it feel like a fantasy to you? I don't know. Anyway, discuss that. Okay, so then we've got this. Stop me and ask me a question if we get to a point where you're not sure. This saying here of the Buddhas, backing up on stuff now, is if you have a look at the wheel, there's a little like a plaque underneath it, and that's what it says. That's all in, I don't know what that's in, it looks like Sanskrit, but anyway, that it says make effort to destroy, etc., etc. That's at the bottom of the wheel of life. Okay, sure we're covering everything. A little bit of a recap. Karma. We could do some more on karma. Are we getting we've got the 5 aggregates and we've seen them as they come through here. That's good. Consciousness, name and form. I just want to make sure we're getting everything here. Yeah. One of the 5 aggregates is also called discrimination, recognition, perception. That's the compositional actions. It's got lots of different names. So you just pick the one that kind of works for you. Yeah. Let's go back a little bit on the 5 aggregates. So formal matter is everything, the body, all our nose, eyes, ears, blah, that form the part of a human being. Then we've got feelings, pleasure, pain, or neutral. Feelings arise from contact. Contact is the next one. I'll just show you that one. We're losing it. There's contact. Okay. My notes aren't matching up with my, here we go. Okay. So discrimination or perception or recognition is recognition of an object through contact. So the formulation of a conception of an idea about a particular object of experience. So as soon as we meet an object through contact, and then we start to formulate a conceptual idea about that experience. That's discrimination or perception or recognition. That is the third one. Then you've got compositional factors, also called, it's mixing up here, willpower, intentional, mental formations, and thought processes. It includes all the mental factors except feelings and discrimination. And contact through the senses brings about the necessity of choosing an action, volition, and the action we choose depends upon our thought processes. It's when we relate to an object, and that's when karma happens. And then we've got consciousness. That's knowing the object through the 6 consciousnesses. That's the 5 sense consciousnesses and the mental consciousness, which isn't consciousness, it's a mental factor, yeah? And it includes the main mind that is clear and knowing, and the secondary minds or mental factors that are all interrelated, interdependent, and coexistent. The mental consciousness conceptualizes perceptions of the consciousness, and consciousness is also synonymous with awareness and citta, unfolding experience. Okay, so I think that's enough for the moment, because you've kind of got the whole 12 here, and you just want to make sure where the hiccups are so that we can go back to them. So I'd quite like to just run through the rest and see if they make sense. You need to talk about them to see that they make sense. That's what I want. I've given you that. Given you that. Okay. So, yeah. So let's go to the discussion sheet. New share. Do I stop that share? I don't flipping know. Yes, I do stop that share. And I go to new share. Basic. Share is here. Okay. Right. Right. Well, first of all, I want you in your groups to kind of process that. You know, it's nice that we do this now, because the after dinner one can be a bit bringing us down. And I think if you discuss it, and now you've got the whole of the 12 links, you can just start to go, well, I understand this, but I don't get what's happening here. Or how do the aggregates work? So would like you to clarify for yourselves whether you've got any hiccups on this or whether you get it, okay? And then on the discussion sheet, number 4, Rinpoche, spending this, is like, what Dharma tools do you find most effective in averting craving of the 8 worldly concerns? Yeah, so that's a practical one. So I want you to go through them, make sure you understand them. And then if you've got time, just go, well, you know, in terms of managing my own thoughts and emotions, and when it comes to craving in particular, which of your Dharma activities, ways of thinking, deal with that better, as best as can be possible. Yeah. So do you practice mindfulness? Do you think about attachment? Just think about what you do. So what might be good for that is to just consider where you're craving, where your strongest cravings lie. So that's what we're going to do for 5 minutes or so, just a short meditation on analytical thinking of our cravings. Then you're going to go into your discussion groups, yeah? And then we'll come back. Okay. Okay, so just rest in your awareness. Very lightly becoming mindful. Creating some lovely space then. But all the intellectual wranglings of the 12 branches of dependent links just settle and give yourself some space to focus on the craving. Just think what the word means. Is a mind, craving is a mind of desirous attachment. You've had contact, you've had feeling, and now you've got this mind of desirous attachment to pleasure. So when we're having pleasant experiences, we want more of them. And it's also craving to want to be separated from unpleasant experiences. So you might consider that as well. Are there situations in which you just desperately wish not to be there or to see it? So through craving, we generate attachment to good feelings, friends, whatever brings us that pleasure, and we generate bad feelings for the opposite. Think of the alcoholic in the picture. He's addicted to drinking wine. So when you think about your craving, it's not necessarily going to be an obvious one, like drink or drugs. Food, possibly. Craving to be near somebody in particular. Craving for relationships. Craving for comfort. More and more comfort. Those who like to make their homes ever more and more sumptuous, always updating their homes. The homes becoming symbolic of themselves, identifying with your home, your animals. Just really get a feeling for your ego side of craving. It's the easiest way to do it is to just be mindful. So objectively aware of the ego side of you, that frightened, insecure, self-cherishing, self-grasping, aspect of yourself. It's kind of what we genuinely take refuge in. Our craving. And remember the 8 worldly concerns. Not just for things, but for reputation, praise, blame, always craving to be told how good you are. That's something. Craving not to hear any blame. Status, reputation. Pin it down until you get to a point where you go, I got you. I've got exactly what it is. Me, my ego at the moment craves for. And when you're ready, just relax. Okay, so that's an interesting meditation. Yeah. You can see how we need mindfulness in meditations like this, you know, to be able to be the observer. That's very much mindfulness. It's awareness of what the ego's up to. Because if we meditate, we have a strong feeling of I am craving, then that is a big obstacle because the ego doesn't want to admit it. Do we get that? No? So we've always got to think craving arises, not I am craving. Just like we think anger arises, not I am angry. So we always take the I out of it. When we talk, if possible, but especially in meditation, when we're observing these experiences, these events, this phenomena, we're experiencing them arise. They're not us. And they're happening, as we can see, in the wheel of life of the 6 realms. You know, that's just the form realms, to billions of other beings. So it's pointless, counterproductive. You know, the counterproductive maelstrom of suffering. It's counterproductive to identify with them. Yeah, okay. Okay, so like before, including up in the gods there, dividing into groups of 3 or 4. We've got 2 groups of 4 here now, and it's 10 to 3. I think there's quite a lot to talk about, so let's take it to 10 past, which gives you a good 20 plus minutes there. Because if you're talking about what Dharma tool you find most effective in averting craving, yeah? What antidote, what Dharma tools, yes, what antidotes, perfect, do you find most effective in averting craving? Craving in general, but you can look at the 8 worldly concerns, which I've got on that list. And then the other factor here is Lama Zopa's number 4. Up in the gods, that's all we're doing, number 4. We did number 3 as, let me see if I can get an image of you all. Sorry about this. So we did number 3, and that's what you got confused on, but we did that as a meditation, which I hope has created some clarity. And now we're looking at number 4, which is the Lama Zopa quotation there, and then the little bit about the antidotes to the 8 worldly concerns. So, but my main purpose of this is to use those questions for discussion to get your heads around the 12 links and see if they're all making sound sense for you. Okay? Are we okay with that?
Yes.
Right. If you're not tough, you're doing it. Okay. And I think, yeah, if you want to get a bit of fresh air as well, that might help. Sleepy atmosphere. 3, beg your pardon, we'll all come back. 20 minutes, Shayla. Okay. And Anna, thank you. We'll start. Okay. Okay. Well, you had 3 groups going up there. There's quite a crew of you this afternoon. So let's start with one of your groups, please. So who's that going to be?
I'll go. I took notes this time. Karen said, oh, hang on, what is it? It's if you pay attention to the 8th-fold path, that right there is going to help a lot with craving.
If you pay attention to what?
The 8th-fold path, like.
Oh, the 8th-fold path, right.
Yes. And then we talked about avoidism and meditation. The meditations was something that we all agreed on. Listening to ourselves.
Which self?
Like listening to our body and catching it before it grows. So I guess it would be listening to, I don't know.
Well, we've got you when you listen to yourself. That's Kim's husband. Hello. When you listen to yourself, there's 2 very positive things you do there. Sometimes just listening to your body. I mean, when you're listening to your body, you're actually becoming aware of your feelings. You are mindful of your feelings because we feel it in the body, don't we? We feel where there's tension, whether there's heat or cold. We can feel what's going on. If we come into contact with something that we don't like, we can go cold. Or we can withdraw, so there's tension. So definitely listening to yourself on that score. But if we're talking about listening to our intuition, you know, what Lama Yeshe would call, trusting your own inner guru. Yeah, we're making a separation between what we know to be the ego, which is this, strong, feisty, self-righteous, self-cherishing aspect of all of us. We've all got that. That's in place. That's actually the contaminated aggregates with karmic propensities is the ego. Yeah, is this ego self we have created. But if we're as Buddhist practitioners, we go deeper down to heart level. Even I'm pointing down here. This wonderful place, the longest journey we ever make is from our head to our heart. That's from the ego, if you like, the ego-centered I, down to the higher self, as Jung would call it. We would call it Buddha nature, the inner guru. I trust your inner guru. So that intuitive place, which isn't just a random kind of, oh, I think I should do this, but a really deeply felt, often through meditation, form of guidance. Then you're on listening to yourself. Yeah, we've got to take care we're not listening to our ego, because the ego is very noisy, very loud, yeah, and thinks it's right, and it will try to drown out the voice of the higher self. And often we find that if we really have a kind of stubborn sense of wanting something or wanting to do something, and we'll keep justifying it. It's absolutely essential that I get that bigger, faster, more expensive car. And then we'll kind of go into, I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying that if it's ego based, we'll go into all kinds of justification. No matter what anybody tells us, we won't listen. That's your ego. That's how to find your ego. Yeah, one of the ways in which to find your ego. So we have to draw back and go, I'll give this some space. I'll come back to it. And with that rational observer mind, find a self that is really worth listening to. Sorry for that interruption, but that was a very good point. Okay, carry on.
That was what we had. I can't think of, being good, being helpful, as long as we're not attached to that process. So, volunteering, but as long as we're not attached.
Okay, so
to that. Yeah.
let's just list what you got. It's sort of going into meditation, listening to your inner self. What was the other one?
The Eightfold Path, just by living that.
Yeah, okay. So, and in this tradition, we kind of think of the 6 perfections. So generally looking at, all of this on the wheel of life is the first and second noble truth. Life is suffering that causes desire. So we're well in that with craving and grasping. So then it naturally goes into the path, which is the Eightfold Path, and that's how to end. Yes, so that makes perfect sense. But if we also remember compassion blended with that, because in our tradition we're following the 6 perfections. Yeah.
6 perfections.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Very useful. Okay, let's go to our group. They all joined together to form one group. So let's hear from what you got. There was lots of discussion, and we need the microphone, please. This is Lou.
Hello.
Hi. Well, the approach we took was to talk about what our craving that we felt was the biggest craving we face at this time, and a different antidote to it. And by doing that one at a time, it helped firm up. No, it helped firm up. It helped by hearing all the different antidotes.
Yes.
It gave us this feeling that, number one, we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
And number two, that there are many solutions, and all the solutions to all their cravings could apply to any one of their cravings.
Yes.
Just put in a different format. And that craving is universal, and the antidotes are universal and interchangeable.
Brilliant. Thank you. I would love to hear some of the examples. So who wants to take that microphone? Bade, would you like to become a voice?
I would like to.
Well, just one voice. Thank you. Yeah, just would like to hear. Oh, they're shy.
Okie dokie.
They don't want to reveal their
All right.
personal cravings. Oh, just general.
No, I'm not
Just
really.
general, not your own. It doesn't.
Okay.
We don't know whose craving this is, but there's a group here.
Well, I think my craving was, and I will be personal.
You don't have to do that.
No, it's
It's
all
not
right.
therapy.
It's the way I can. I know.
Well, yeah, but
I just feel like the desire to fix situations, or the avoidance sometimes for me is also an issue.
I'm not picking you up.
Avoidance
Of
problems, but also at the same time, it's contradictory, but trying to resolve or fix things that aren't really fixable.
So can I just clarify that, because I'm picking up something interesting here, and I don't know if it's what you're actually saying, but are you saying that you want to fix things in order to avoid problems.
Yes.
Yes.
But I also want to avoid things in order to
Not have to fix
not have to fix them.
it. I think we've discovered another worldly concern.
And perhaps it is more egocentric to
Yes.
not want to be enmeshed in the middle of a lot of drama.
I think that's very interesting because it points to our need to feel like we are in control
Yes.
of
Absolutely.
samsara. And that is one of the first recognitions, is that we do not have any control
Mhm.
due to the, you know, the laws of impermanence. You know, we don't know what's going to happen next, but the ego is desperately trying to control it so that we do avoid unpleasant experiences.
Mhm.
So it is about the whole pleasure, displeasure, or unpleasant, pleasant. We're trying to avoid it. So if we become a fixer, quite common in motherhood, I think, you know, to want to avoid problems with those we are very attached to. Yeah, as well. That's part of it. So that's that's a very interesting craving, one which is quite subtle, actually. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Paula, another one, or are we done? Yeah, Bardi's been inspired now. Oh, right, okay.
Okay, my craving was food.
Food. I'm with you on that one.
I love to eat. And the way I haven't succeeded in cutting the craving out. What I've done is I've taken the edge off of it. And that's by doing long offerings in my mind. And by long, I only mean like 3 or 4 minutes, and it's in my mind. And I can feel, I really want to eat whatever I'm going to eat. And I can feel the craving. I can feel the attachment.
Yes.
And what I do is I just keep on going, like what the ingredients are and what people died and what sentient beings were kind. And I go through all of it. And I keep on going until the edge comes down.
That's brilliant.
And I don't feel that craving anymore. When I get to the point where I feel, well, maybe I won't eat it, then I go eat it. You know?
Yes.
So it's just taking the edge off of that grasping.
Yes. But we were talking about that a little bit at lunchtime because, well, I'll tell you the story because we all like stories, but Lama Zopa was visiting our very new group, Yeshi Buddhist group in Cumbria, so in our village. And it was a tiny little, you know, Lake District village, very fairy tale like. And we managed to get him a house, which was a holiday home of some of our friends. So he stayed there. And I tell you, he never lay down to sleep. He was always sitting up and just meditated. But the point of this is that we had some very good cooks who did momos and, you know, all lovely Tibetan stuff. And they came to cook for him. And there was one day where we'd invited quite a large group because we were all people who had come from Manjushri Institute. And there was a big schism there. And so we'd all been scattered. And this was a kind of bringing together and formulating a new group. We all came for this lunch, and Ronnie, this lovely cook, this lovely woman who has passed on actually now, but she did a beautiful spread. And he'd been teaching us in the morning, and we'd been in the garden, and we were all kind of starving, really hungry. And lots of kids. We had, you know, about a dozen children, because we were all in our 40s, I think. So we had children at various stages. And they were all with us and very excited by this event. And all the food came out on the table, and Lama Zopa started to bless it. And he offered it to the hell realms, And he offered it to all the beings, all the poor hungry ghosts, very much the hungry ghosts, because of course they never get satisfaction from food. He offered it to every realm. He offered it to all the kind of problem areas in the world today, in the human realm. And this went on for about an hour. And everybody around this table, you could see that each time he kind of paused, we were all ready, ready to grab a plate and put food on. And then he would start again, and we would all stand there again. And the kids were like looking at their parents. And it went on. And it was just as Lou said, when we'd all given up all hope of ever eating again. All our attachment was destroyed. We could eat. And so we all sat down to eat. And Venerable Roger Kunsang, who is, I think he's still Rinpoche's attendant, said, you turned to me and said, you get used to eating cold food. So that was just a story to follow Lou's, which I think is exactly what Rinpoche does for everybody else. He's just, looking at our craving and getting rid of attachment. Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Thank you. Bardi.
So during the discussion, actually, the group really helped me to understand my craving better, which started off as connection. And I was having difficulty to understand what part of the ego that was coming from. And I think now it's more of a kind of a self-doubt that I needed affirmation from others, maybe. And an antidote that is helpful is the equanimity. So you can feel connection with everybody.
Oh, that's lovely. Yes, that's lovely. So the antidote to your self-doubt is recognizing, is that what you said, the affection from everybody rather than craving a specific
Right.
from somebody who is not giving you what you, yeah. That's really letting go, isn't it? Well, that's lovely. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's go to another group up there with you. Who shall we have now? Thank you. Who hasn't spoken? Who wishes to speak? Barbara, I'm going to pick on you. Were you in the other group? No?
Hi, Andy. Yes,
Hi.
I was in another group,
Good.
and we too discussed what our cravings were. That's how we initiated our conversation. And boy, they're universal. They are just universal. Because the one that I brought up, others could relate to. What others brought up, we could just all relate. And then we did discuss some of the antidotes to them. Some of our cravings were food.
Well, what?
Specific food. Craving for food. Craving of food. Eating.
Yes.
Craving.
Everyone knows that.
Yes.
Oh.
Craving of chocolate cake. Craving of comfort.
Comfort. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Those were the three. Craving of I don't want to misphrase how this person said it, but craving of a past that they wish was different. I think that I'm
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
getting the gist of that correctly. Again, I don't want to put words in someone else's mouth.
But it's an interesting concept anyway. Craving a past that is different to the one they had.
Correct.
Very interesting.
Craving for people in their past in their past that weren't there, craving for people that weren't there.
Right. So people perhaps who had left or died wishing that they had been there. Wishing, craving. There's a
Mhm,
si-
mhm.
there's a similarity going on there, isn't there? I guess, just to interrupt you here, a wish is, oh, that would have been nice, but a craving is like, becomes an anxiety. Actually, it forms part of our neurotic anxiety. So again, if you look at the practice of mindfulness, it's very much about being in the present, yeah? Not craving for anything in the future, and not, if you like, being anxious about what has happened in the past and identifying with it, yeah? So there is a craving for, why wasn't I like this? So in that way, there's actually a denial of cause and effect. We are denying that we have created the causes for our own past. Yeah? Because
And
it is,
the
it is our
person
karma. Go on, Barbara.
Mhm. And the person did realize that,
Yes,
and
of course.
and was aware of that, and did know that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we know it, but
Mhm.
practicing it is another thing, isn't it? So then we need those antidotes. And I do think mindfulness, which trains us to be present and appreciate the present, helps a great deal with, I mean, classically, that's how they sell it in the mindfulness world is, no worries, no anxieties, past, be present. That's the kind of popular mindfulness that is practiced around the world. But it is very true that if we are observant of the present, then that past ceases to be so important to our sense of identity, because that's what we're doing. We're carrying the past as a burden, yeah? And of course, many of us, if not most of us, do it to a certain extent. Yes, it's not just that one person. It's a very good point. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the other thing you said about comfort, I was just going to refer to when we have contact generates feeling, and I'm better off to avoid contact with objects that lead to more greed and further suffering, which is why the Buddha taught and gives advice, especially to the ordained community, to have few possessions. We were talking about that at lunchtime here as well, to be well contained and have few possessions, because the more possessions we have, we generate the feeling of which leads to craving for more possessions and also to grasp onto those possessions. Thank you. And anything else going on up there? Barbara, is that all for your group?
We
Cool.
did talk about some of the antidotes that were,
Okay.
at least for me, were helpful. We use the term awareness as opposed to mindfulness, but I think they are synonymous.
Yep.
Compassion
Yes. Yes.
and impermanence. Those were the three that come to mind. I didn't take notes, so these are just the things that
that's
came to
fine.
my
That's
mind
fine.
from
It's
the
what's-
conversation.
Yeah. Compassion every time. Self-compassion.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
And that was the one. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Is there one other group, I think, that has not been represented? We're done down here because we had one big group, but is there another group that wishes to add anything, or are we done?
I could add maybe a little, and
that?
Charlene, if you wanted to add, this is Erin.
Oh, Erin.
One of the things that hasn't been said yet was vows. Especially with the craving and grasping towards intoxicants, having the vow to just not even go there.
Yes.
And then learn how to deal once you're not intoxicating yourself.
I'm going to pick you up on that immediately, because that's a really interesting one. Because yeah, we're moving away from the idea that vows of some kind of punishment to be we need to be ascetic. They are there to protect us from our potential non-virtues that might ripen for us. And the one with intoxicants, I think, is very interesting, because if you don't take intoxicants at all, it's not a problem. But if you decide, well, you just have the occasional glass, it can be more of a problem, because there isn't a boundary. There isn't a boundary. So I know that a lot of lamas, are kind to Westerners and say, you don't have to take that one. But they always say, be very careful you don't get intoxicated, because then that can lead to harmful actions for yourself and others. So it's about not causing suffering to others. But yeah, definitely the craving for drink and drugs points to what, Erin? Did you come up with that, your group? Not you particularly, but because intoxicants is a specific one.
I think we talked a little bit about dissatisfaction, trying to avoid some kind of dissatisfaction.
It can also be a symptom of low self-esteem. Very much so, that you, or again, if you've got somebody who is past oriented and whose present is very much afflicted by their past even, then we lose ourselves, because intoxicants kind of numb us out, don't they? They take us into a different state of mind. So it's often about some kind of low self-esteem. And that also might be related to things like grief. You're escaping.
Can I comment?
I'm just reading Danny's chat here. She says, I've taken vows. I've lost it now. You've taken it away, Danny. And they haven't made much difference to her, although it's
No,
slowed her
man,
down
I
a
was
bit.
almost a priest. I was on the priest track hood, and it slowed me down very little, very little. What has helped most, and I'm developing slowly on this, is the compassion that when I fail to resist those temptations, whatever they are, then I'm actually letting down those poor sentient beings that I have vowed to save. And that is what's helping me most. And I'm still on the slow track, but I really started developing more once I added them to the equation.
It's very interesting. Thank you, Danny.
Ondy, can I make a comment? It's Karen.
Who's speaking to me?
It's Karen.
Oh, Karen.
With regard to the intoxicants, I think if you follow the middle way,
I'm not getting this very clearly. Somebody's going to have to translate for me. Okay, I'm looking at you, Baldy. Okay, carry on, Karen. It's just a little bit muffled for me. Go on.
Can you hear me better now?
I heard that. Yes.
Good. I'll just speak more slowly. Regarding the intoxicants issue a little while ago, I think if you follow the middle way, the boundaries are to a large degree established. And what you have to realize when you're dealing with the subject of intoxicants in general and humanity is all the oracles, the Tibetan ones included, used various intoxicants to gain access to higher realities. And this is true historically for thousands of years. So,
okay, Karen, can I just ask you to stop there before Bardi misses this, because I didn't get hardly any of that. Can you tell me what she said? So something about they take vows to gain higher reality.
Yes. So Karen, we understand what you just said as that there has been a tradition to take intoxicants to gain a higher level, higher. Is that right, Karen?
The oracles,
The oracles.
the Tibetan ones included, the Delphic, Tibetan, African, you name it, global. It's a global
Yeah.
thing.
Okay, Karen. Yeah, I get you on that, but they're very specific people with very specific powers, and it's very specifically managed. So it's not
Yes,
like.
I
Sorry,
agree.
Karen. Well,
I-
hang on
I-
a minute. Hang on, Karen. Let me finish. just to say that that particular example is a good example, and it's a bit like shamans. You know, if you have a certain intoxicant and you are managing it extremely well, and all the rest of it, you can attain higher levels of reality. And let's not forget the whole Ginsburg crowd brought, you know, Buddhism back to America or whatever,
Exactly.
in the fact that they had taken drugs which opened them up to a higher reality.
Yes.
But in principle, and we've had this discussion with Lama Yeshe, definitely, is that the majority of us can't manage to do that. We don't have the limits, we don't have, and also we need the clarity of our mind to meditate. And that drug-induced states, for the majority of us, are very temporary and might benefit us in opening us up. They might also kill us. So, yeah, that's the bottom line for that, really, is, and we have to move on. So I'm gonna, sorry to cut you. It's a very important point, but one that we must be clear is, oh, I don't need to say that to you, but if this room was full of young people who are about to go on a rave or whatever, then you need to kind of state that it's dodgy, and that it was always Lama Yeshe's advice. It's a very dodgy route. It can damage your mind permanently, and only if you are probably highly realized already could you manage it for whatever purposes. Anyway, it's 10-4. Yeah, it's 10-4. So yes, thank you. Getting all those messages. We all kind of agree there, meditators. Thank you so much. I'm going to take you to the last slide. With any luck? So I stopped the share of that, do I? Just to make sure we complete the information that I want you to have. That was very interesting. Great, thank you. Nice to discuss. Yeah. Why is it doing that? Get rid of that. There we are. Okay, here we go to our last slide. Right, now according to His Holiness, just out of interest this is, we're understanding the arising of our becoming, which is dependent on the karmic power of whatever actions we have made. So different karmas have different power. And again, we all know that the results of karma arise when the causes and conditions come together. So His Holiness states, and I'm just going to go through this, in one lifetime, motivated by ignorance, which is self-grasping and misunderstanding the nature of reality, we create karma which is infused in our consciousness. So that's us now here. So near the time of death, a next lifetime, or any number of lifetimes in between, depending on the karmic power, increasing because of craving and grasping, we generate existence. So this can happen over 2 lifetimes or 3 lifetimes or more. So it's not like what we do now happens next lifetime. It very much depends on the force and the nature of the karma and what conditions we are born into. So it's not following on one from another, but we experience, we generate existence, we experience name and form, the 6 sense consciousnesses, contact, feeling, birth, aging, and death in each lifetime. So the karma is actualized at its fastest over 2 lifetimes. That's the fastest. At the longest, according to His Holiness, I didn't know this, but over 3 lifetimes. Yeah. So, for instance, we kill someone in this lifetime, there may be many lifetimes in between. So we're not talking about next lifetime. There may be many lifetimes in between, but the karma is fused in the consciousness, and then it arises in it all arises in a future lifetime. Yeah. So it's not following on, but the karmic results happen within 2 lifetimes or 3 lifetimes. Does that make sense? It's not that you're going to you can have any amount of lifetimes in between where that karma is not having the effect. That makes sense now, doesn't it? Yeah. So you can die, you've got this karma infused on your consciousness, and maybe you killed somebody, but you live a long life, and this, that, and the other, all lovely, 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 and then boom, causes and conditions come together, all in a future lifetime, which we call the second one or the third one, and the results come then. Yeah. So that's how it happens. So what have I got here? Yeah, we've discussed realms of existence as actual places or psychological realms. We've done that. Observing how these links become apparent in our everyday experience is an interesting exercise. Yeah, we've talked about craving. I think that's very useful. Yeah. And then the 12 nidanas, which is the Sanskrit name for them, both outer over several lifetimes and inner in one particular action in an interdependent manner. That's how they happen. Let me make sure. Right. So realms of existence are seen literally, but we also experience them in one lifetime as psychological realms. Similarly, we can see 12 links in a lifetime within one action that we make. So, for instance, I'm motivated by ignorance. I engage with a driver who appears to think I entered the main road from the wrong side without recognizing they were right behind me. And due to my compositional factors, this potency is infused in my consciousness. My consciousness arises from my identity as Ondy Willson, name and form, from past karma. I react with my 6 senses, 6 frustration, flashing headlights, honking a form. My senses make contact with these sense objects. It's an unpleasurable feeling. Anxiety arises because I crave for people to like me. I don't like upsetting people. I grasp onto the reasons why I'm right, now they're wrong. And then all the reasons why they were right and I was wrong. And this increases my karmic propensity of ego grasping. I compound the anxiety into existence by telling my friends as I search for justification. The event of this particular road rage is born and eventually passes. It ages and dies. So even an action can be seen in the 12 dependent links. You have to think about that one. Yeah. All of those are arising in one action. Fascinating. Okay. And then, of course, in another lifetime, I have that propensity to create it again, to create that again. So I thoroughly recommend mindfulness, and we've only got 5 minutes to have a little go of that. So we're just going to finish off with a short meditation, a final meditation on mindfulness of feelings, okay? Okay, so settle the mind. That's a lot of intellectual consideration, and you've done some great personal reflection. And let's utilize the experience of the day in mindfulness of feelings. So we've come into contact with the object of our thinking, understanding, and meditating on the 12 dependent links. Can you remember a time today when you heard something which was pleasurable? Identify it. See if you can find a reason why. Can you identify a time, something that you heard or engaged in, which was unpleasurable? Can you think why? And what about neutral? Was there a time when you turned off, where you went blank, where you were sleepy, drowsy, indifferent? Identify why. And how this all links with your craving. Let that just dissolve into your heart as an awareness that you're going away with. And if you had an objective, why you came on the day, what you're going away with that is new and helpful and helps you on the path, identify that now as well. And dissolve that into your heart and generate a lot of light, because we've been walking on the dark side in many ways. And we need to recognize that we are achieving something through this meditation, through this study, and that it is adding and brightening our inner guru, which is shining. And if you do have a guru, they'll be smiling all over their faces at you. So let that light shine within. And recognize your true source of refuge. And let's dedicate all these amazing virtues that you created today, we've created today. And how it's going to help us help others. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more.
Hate this shit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody out there.
Good to see you.
Lovely for having all that input. Lovely to see you. Okay. I say bye-bye to you.